Hello everyone, it's Mr. Harris here, and I'm bringing you this week's votes for schools. So we'll get started straight away. I'll share my screen and you should hopefully be able to see the presentation. And this week we'll be looking at the question whether half the earth should be given away to wildlife. So just a quick starter. It'd be great to do this with someone in your house. Could you fill in the speech and thought bubbles? What might these animals be thinking? So I wonder if that bear in the top left might be me when I get up in the morning, thinking, do I have to do this again? In the bottom right, maybe they're saying, when do you think this social distancing will end? They look a bit closer than 2 meters, don't they? Okay, hope you've come up with some good ideas for that. So, should we give half of Earth to wildlife? Well, why are we talking about this? So actually, this week zoos have been able to reopen as long as they practice good social distancing. But whilst we haven't been able to visit zoos, many people have been watching zoos online. I'll put a link in the video description for you to watch some of the live zoos on camera, which is quite interesting. People often celebrate when animals in zoos give birth, particularly like that sun bear, but this is because they are endangered species. An endangered species is one that might not exist because there are no longer many alive. If you look at the picture there, it's a Spix's macaw. They're the birds that were in the film Rio, and they are actually extinct, so we don't find them anywhere in the world now. So what's actually happening to our wildlife at the moment? Well, scientists are worried about the speed at which wildlife is becoming extinct. More than 26,000 species are threatened. That means they might not be around in the near future. But how is this actually happening? Just going to watch a video now, which gives you some explanation on how animals can go extinct.
Every year, more and more animals are in serious danger of going extinct. But have you ever stopped and wondered what causes animals to go extinct in the first place? Let's find out on today's episode of Of all the animals that have ever lived on Earth, 99.9% are now extinct. The first and most common way that animals go extinct is what we're going to call extinction by natural causes. This is when a species dies out naturally because of forces like climate change, competition from other animals, a reduced food supply, or most likely, a combination of all three. Most natural extinctions happen very slowly over hundreds or even thousands of years. But every once in a while, a catastrophic event can lead to a quick mass extinction, like the meteorite that killed the dinosaurs. Natural causes may have been the main reason animals went extinct throughout most of Earth's history, but over the last couple hundred years, humans have given nature a run for its money as the biggest cause of extinction. That's right, over the last 500 years or so, humans have hunted lots of animals into extinction. Take the passenger pigeon, for example. When European settlers first arrived in North America in the late 1400s, there were 3 to 5 billion passenger pigeons living there. By the 1800s, hunting and eating the poor pigeons was so widespread in the US that the very last passenger pigeon died in 1914, and that's just one example. Some species, like the American bison, are luckier. Millions of bison lived in North America until the Europeans arrived. Hunting was so intense that only 541 were left by 1889. Sound familiar? Well, unlike the passenger pigeon, this story has a happier ending. A handful of ranchers gathered the remaining bison together to save them from extinction. Since then, their numbers have flourished, and more than 300,000 bison live today on farms and national parks around the US and Canada. Animals are also hunted for body parts like fur, feathers, hides, or horns. And hunting isn't the only way humans cause animals to go extinct. Habitat loss is a huge problem too. When we build giant farms to grow food, the natural land that many animals rely on is destroyed, leading to their extinction. Pollution can poison the land, air, and especially water, and has at least 700 marine species on the brink of extinction right now. So just remember, like tigers, elephants, and rhinos, even the mightiest animals are at risk of extinction if we're not careful.
And So what's happening to our wildlife now? Extinction has happened to many different species. I want you to have a look at the skeletons there and see if you can name what those extinct species are. That's right, the first one is the dinosaurs, very famous. Second one is a dodo. That's where the phrase dead as a dodo comes from, because it is most certainly extinct. And the final one is the mammoth, the things you might have seen in the Stone Age studying. There's many reasons why these animals are at risk, and some of it is because of human behavior, human action. So they're destroying their habitats and making them endangered. Such reasons are chopping down trees, and obviously the polluting of the land and the sea there. Okay, so why is wildlife important? Well, there's reasons that we just enjoy wildlife, and I'd like you to list those down, but also there's reasons that we really need animals and plants to survive. So there is a difference between those two. We depend on them. That means that we need them to in order to survive. It's obvious that some animals and plants are really important to us. So chicken, which makes a big part of our diet, or a lot of people's diet. It's not just the meat, eggs as well that come from chickens. Got some wonderful pets in our lives that teach us a lot of good things, like looking after animals, and also they make us feel happy. And also we can give flowers and plants as gifts. That's a nice thing to do certain times in the year. But animals and plants aren't just important for those things just because we like them, we actually need them. And here's a couple of reasons for that. So ants make tiny holes in the soil, which means it's easier to grow crops and plants for us to eat. Bats spread seeds, and they also eat the insects that destroy our fruit trees. So they make sure we have lots of fruit. And importantly, the bees. And we're going to see a video now which will describe why bees are so important to us. So we'll watch the video. Here it is.
It's summer where I live, and that means that it's almost time for some of my favorite kinds of fruit to be ready to eat, like strawberries, peaches, and cherries. And if you like fruit as much as I do, then do you know who you should thank for it? Bees! That's right! Bees do more than just make honey. They play an important part in helping us enjoy all kinds of yummy fruits. How? Well, last time we followed a honeybee as she went about her day, and one of the things that we learned was that her most important job was to find and get food. She did this by flying around lots of different flowers and collecting some of their sweet nectar. Let's take a look at one of those flowers now. If we look really closely at the flower, we can see that it has lots of different parts. You probably already know the name of one of these parts. If you said petals, you're right. The parts on the outside of the flower are called petals. But have a look at this part, inside the flower. It's called the stamen, and it makes a yellow dust that we call pollen. If you carefully touch the top of this part of the flower, some of the yellow dust will probably come off on your finger. Pollen can also make some people sneeze, especially if there's a lot of it. But if you want to have fruit, you have to have pollen, because the pollen needs to travel from the stamen of one flower to a different part of another flower. And when it does, a tiny fruit will start to grow inside the flower. But where does the pollen have to go? It goes to this part of the flower, called the pistil. It's kind of long and looks a little like a vase or a bowling pin. The very top of the pistil is kind of flat, and it's covered with sticky, gooey stuff that's almost like glue. If pollen touches this gooey, sticky stuff, it gets stuck. Then, little bits of the pollen move down into the bottom of the pistil. And when that happens, the bottom starts to grow and swell up. It gets bigger and changes color, and the petals of the flower fall off. What's left is what we call fruit. So, to get fruit, it's important that pollen gets moved from the stamen of one flower to the pistil of another flower, and that some pollen gets stuck to the top of the flower's pistil. And this whole process is called pollination. And this is where bees come in. You might remember that bees get their food by drinking nectar from a flower. While a bee is moving around in a flower looking for that nectar, little bits of pollen from the stamen sticks to her legs, to her wings, and to her little fuzzy body. Then she flies off to another flower to get more food. And as the bee crawls all over the next flower, she bumps into the flower's pistil. So some of the pollen from the bee's body gets stuck to the top of the pistil. Then, if everything goes according to plan, in time, we'll get a nice piece of fruit. All of your favorite fruits start out this way, from tiny blueberries to giant watermelons. And bees aren't the only animals that pollinate flowers. Moths, butterflies, even bats and hummingbirds drink nectar from flowers. And when they do, they often carry pollen with them. But bees are some of the busiest and most important pollen carriers around. So the next
Okay, so there you will have seen the importance of bees. They're crucial to all of our pollination, which then in turn gives us fruit. Continuing why wildlife is important. So plants are also wildlife. They are extremely important in making medicines. A lot of the medicines we have come from rainforests. Obviously growing fruits and vegetables. There's some yummy things that I'm sure we eat almost every day. And they're ingredients for other foods like, yes, chocolate, and maybe more for the adults, coffee. They're also very important to feeding animals. A lot of the animals are herbivores, so actually they need to eat plants. Okay, so here's the question. Could you give half of the earth away to wildlife? Wildlife survives in these rural areas, so that's places where there aren't many buildings, lots of green space, as you can see in the pictures there. It's important that plants can grow here and animals can live there without being disturbed or put in danger. A lot of us live in urban areas. That's places with lots of roads, cars, buildings, and lots of people live there. It's not so easy for animals to live there. They don't have the right conditions. Just wonder, where would you rather live, in a rural or an urban area? Where do you live at the moment? Suppose coming from Walsall, I expect most of us will be in an urban area. If you look at the picture there, it shows some of our protected wildlife areas in the UK. So that means places where people aren't allowed to build and people can visit them, but they have to be really careful to look after the wildlife. So probably the nearest one to Birmingham or Walsall would be the Peak District, only really an hour's drive away, and it's a beautiful part of the world. Suggest you go and visit it. Across the whole world, about 15% is protected for wildlife, but scientists think that half of the world should be protected for wildlife to help growing plants and stop animals becoming extinct. That would mean a big change, and there's a lot of humans living on the earth. If you look at this map, this shows the cities and wildlife areas of the UK. So the green and blue areas are areas of rural, so where animals and plants are more likely to live and grow, and the red areas are more urban areas where lots of people live. You can see that there, that England has a lot more of the urban areas compared to Ireland and Scotland. I wonder if you could just take a moment to count the number of squares that are rural areas, so they're the green and the blue ones. And you could also count the squares for the number of urban areas. Are there more of the urban areas or more of the rural areas? Okay, so children, you can't vote this week because it's a special topic this time. But here's your reason. So should we give half of Earth to wildlife? It would be great to receive an email from someone if you email to the year group email to say yes or no, whether you think we should give it to them. Just a little extension here. There's things you can do to help protect wildlife too. If all of us are doing something like this, make a huge difference. So feeding the birds in your garden is one option. Growing plants, that's something I know a lot of people have been doing with Mrs. Gilden's gardening club virtually, but sending in photos of things they've been growing. And also, really simple one here, we did it as a school council last year, picking up litter. This can help to make people's, or rather their animals' habitats a lot more safe to live in. Okay, that is the end of this week's topic. I hope you've enjoyed. Take care. Bye.